Jordan Love over Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud, and Jake Ferguson as an option above George Kittle. We're going to look at quarterbacks, tight ends, and DSTs in this episode of the ADP Average Juice podcast. I'm your Average Juice host, Matt Mormann, and we're going to go through those three positions in this episode. Then I'm going to do a second episode going through the running backs and wide receivers for your Week 14 fantasy football matchups. Some leagues are in the playoffs, some leagues are 1 week away. Most leagues are 1 week away from their playoffs, so this is absolutely do or die time if you are still in it. So, hey, let's get those bye weeks, let's get in those playoffs, and let's win some leagues. Let's start with quarterbacks here. The top five, they're pretty much guys you would expect it to be this week. Dak Prescott is my QB1, and then his counterpart in that same game, Jalen Hurts, is QB2, followed by Tua, Mahomes, and Josh Allen. Allen, I have at 5. I'm a little bit nervous about him going against that Kansas City defense, but I do think that he will come through just fine for you this week. Tua, I actually really love this matchup with Tennessee. I think he can absolutely torch them this week with Waddle and with Tyreek. And Dak, I mean, at this point, there's nothing more to say, right? He's been one of the best players in the league this season. He's been an absolutely league-winning candidate so far. I think he's the MVP currently in the NFL. And he's got a great matchup. Philly's defense, I think a lot of us like the talent on that defense, but it hasn't necessarily all come together this season, especially in the pass defense. The next 5 are where we get a little bit more interesting. And actually, we're going to send this out to the rest of the top 12. I go Brock Purdy at 6, Justin Fields at 7, Lamar Jackson, and then it gets real interesting with Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Russell Wilson to round out those starters for the week in a 12-team league. And yeah, Jordan Love, he's been playing really well recently. I've been really impressed by what I've seen out of him. I thought he looked great Sunday night against the Chiefs. It's still a little erratic. It's still a little inconsistent. But I've said all along, he reminds me of Jameis Winston, and that's kind of what we're seeing. There's Jameis Winston without Mike Evans, but Christian Watson's been making some plays. I know he did get banged up on Sunday. I have not seen an update of what his status is at the moment, but against that Giants defense, I think Jordan Love is absolutely a starting option this week. Justin Herbert, I'm a bit nervous about this week. I've got him at QB 10. Typically, I would like to have him closer to where like Fields is at, like QB 7. But that Denver matchup this week, they're still, if you look at season-long numbers, the Broncos defense is still giving up the 10th most points in the league to quarterbacks this season. But if you go back to the Thursday night game against Kansas City, that Thursday night game, the light switch flipped on for this Broncos defense. They've been really good ever since then. They've only allowed, I think, 1 300 passer since then. In that Chiefs game, Mahomes did throw for 300, but only 1 touchdown even. They have not allowed multiple passing touchdowns since week 7 against the Packers, and that's the only time since week 5 when they have allowed multiple passing touchdowns to quarterbacks. So I think Justin Herbert, you're looking at likely just 1 touchdown pass this week. And for a guy who doesn't really do all that much on the ground, you can't bank on Justin Herbert rushing touchdown. And coming off of a miserable game against New England, I would like to find other options. However, it's really hard to, with the state of quarterback this season, all these injuries has really, zapped that depth. I mean, we're talking about Russell Wilson as being a top 12 quarterback this week. So you're probably playing Justin Herbert and you're going to live with it, but I would like to avoid it if possible. Same goes for CJ Stroud. And this one has a little bit to do also with Tank Dell no longer being there. He suffered the season-ending leg injury. He's done for the year. So now it's kind of just Nico Collins I feel really good about as a pass-catching option there. And, Noah Brown, he has his role. He does his thing. He's not bad. I think he's actually a fine flex for this week. But for Stroud, I think he needs Nico to really come through for him, and I have a hard time seeing that against the Jets defense. Sauce Gardner might be able to just kind of take him away. I don't know if Stroud's going to quite be able to get anything else going in this Jets matchup. It's a tough matchup. But it really says a lot as to how good CJ Stroud's been that he still is in the top 12 for me this week. Russell Wilson has a great matchup against the Chargers. It's kind of the other side of that coin. Lesser quarterback, lesser offense, but a great matchup going up against those Chargers. So I like him in the top 12 this week. Other QBs, kind of just to mention notable guys here. Joshua Dobbs is my QB 13, assuming he starts for the Vikings. I would find it very strange for him not to at this point. I don't know why you would go away from him if you're the Vikings, but there is some rumor and talk of that as of time of recording. So just keep an eye on that for Joshua Dobbs. Jared Goff he's got the Bears this week, who have not been a super friendly matchup here in the second half of the season, and Goff himself has definitely cooled off. But looking at the last 3 weeks here for the Bears, one of these matchups being in Detroit, where Goff has been better, and Goff pretty terrible in that game. And then also, they dominated against Carolina. They dominated against Joshua Dobbs and the Vikings. So this Bears pass defense, or at least their defense against quarterbacks, has actually been a lot better as of late. And so I do not feel comfortable playing Jared Goff in this one. He also is definitely on a bit of a cold streak at the moment. His last 3 games, all rather unimpressive. Those being against the Bears, Packers, and Saints. And, in 2 of those, you would have thought he would have a bit of a better day than he did. But that's kind of where we're at the moment with Goff. No one else I'm really too interested in. I think Jake Browning could be a bit of a thing for the rest of the season just because of those weapons. He looked really good on Monday night. I think that there's a chance that maybe he is going to get things going as a low-end option here. So if you're very desperate, who hasn't lost quarterbacks this season, right? Maybe he's a guy. I think Matthew Stafford could also be interesting throughout the playoffs. However, this week he's got the Ravens, so I have him down at QB 17. Absolutely not putting Matthew Stafford in my lineups for this week. Let's shift gears here. Let's go over to tight ends. And the top guys, the top 3 are exactly who you'd think they would be. Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta. Jake Ferguson. I would have Jake Ferguson in my lineup in every league I've got him this week, going up against Philly. Philly has not been very good against tight ends. They are allowing the 12th most points, and Jake Ferguson had a very good game against them earlier this season when they played. I would actually be starting him over guys like George Kittle, Dalton Kincaid, and Evan Ingram, who are the next 3 in my rankings for this week. And, Kittle's got a fine matchup with Seattle. The other 2 very tough matchups, Kincaid against the Chiefs and Evan Ingram against the Cleveland Browns. Also with Jacksonville, keep in mind, probably no Trevor Lawrence this week. So Evan Ingram with a backup QB against very tough defense. I would like to get him out of my lineup. And I've got him right now in front of Taysom Hill. I might make that swap, though. If I've got Taysom Hill, I think I would play him over Evan Ingram. Especially with the Derek Carr injury, there's a chance that I may get some more of Taysom Hill packages, Taysom Hill runs, Taysom Hill passes, all that annoyingly fun stuff that we get out of Taysom Hill. Other options here this week, Isaiah Likely, Pat Freiermuth, Kyle Pitts, David Njoku. Look, you're rolling that roulette wheel, hoping for some touchdowns out of those guys. That's how tight ends rather go. I think Freiermuth should be pretty involved. 2 weeks ago when the offense, I don't even want to say got back on track, just found the tracks. They haven't gotten on them yet, but they at least found the tracks, and they found Pat Freiermuth in doing that. They got away from him last week, but with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback this week, maybe something can happen for Pat Freiermuth. I would like to not play him, but it's tight end, you may have to, because there just aren't very many good options. Low down the range, you got guys like Gerald Everett, your Cole Kmets, Tyler Conklin. Brevin Jordan, sure. Try for a touchdown with those guys. And if you don't get a touchdown, you're probably getting 1 or 2 points. On the DST side of things, the Pittsburgh Steelers are my number 1 DST this week. They go up against a hapless New England Patriots offense. I also like the Ravens, the 49ers, the Saints, all the usual characters, the Browns. I'm really trying to target teams playing these backup quarterbacks, though, right? So, the Packers are a good streaming option. I think Houston Texans are a really good streaming option this week, going up against the New York Jets. Also, the Jags going up against Cleveland. I love me some Joe Flacco, but I think the Jags may be able to make something happen there defensively. Flacco at this point in his career definitely likes to just kind of chuck it deep and hope for the best. Sometimes those will be picked off and be interceptions. So that's also an option. Minnesota is kind of a sneaky one. They're going against Vegas. They looked really good against the Bears 2 weeks ago now, because they were on bye last week. So they're coming off a bye. They could be available still. So the Vikings are definitely kind of a low-end option that I would not mind starting this week in my DST slot. So, guys, that's going to do it for this episode with the DSTs, the tight ends, and the quarterbacks in your lineup. Keep in mind, if you want to see the rankings, I will have those posted. They'll be up on the YouTube channel under the community tab. So just head on over there and take a look at that if you need to kind of see it to be able to help set your lineups. And hey, right after this, I'm going to record a running back and wide receiver episode. And so we will get into the 2 big main positions of fantasy football. best of luck in your Week 14 matchups, and we'll see you over there for that.